Welcome, Exiles. So, I've begun testing a Witch Start into Righteous Fire. I'm simply seeing how early we can viably switch into Righteous Fire. At level 16, that's the earliest you can equip the Righteous Fire gem. My current passive tree is basically just bum rushing Agnosticism / Mind Over Matter. And along with getting some Ruby Res rings and the other fire resistant gear, equipping ourselves a Holy Relic and a Holy Flame Totem from Conk Ground, we can actually sustain Righteous Fire level 16. This isn't really the most ideal, because the second we lose our Holy Flame Totem, you see, we start to degen life. It's pretty slow, so honestly, while going through zones, you could probably do this, because, you know, you still have life flasks, you can still pop that as you're degenning. Second you get to a boss, you can put down your Holy Flame Totem, try to stay within the regen here. It's a small net regen. It's doable. I'm not sure this is the best point to switch to it, because to switch to it, we have to end up basically unspecking out of the spell damage nodes here. Initially, when we level, I took the spell damage nodes, and then I got respec points from the Mudflat quest and the Golden Hand quest to basically unspec out of the 4 points here in order to grab all the way up to Shaper, and grab Mind Over Matter and stuff like that. So, we can technically sustain this early. I'm not sure if I'd recommend it. I'm going to go ahead and end up fast forwarding, basically leveling the character a little bit further and seeing at what point does this get a lot more comfortable to where it starts to feel good. Frankly, I haven't tested this if it even feels good now, so maybe I'll test it now and later on I'll say, you know what, I was playing with it at level 16 and it felt fine as we were going through Act 2. Stuff like that. So, I'll see you in the future. Welcome to the future. We are now level 17, and realistically, the only thing that really changed is we leveled up Vitality once, and would you look at that? Now we sustain Righteous Fire without needing the 6% regen from the Conk effect from the Holy Flame Totem, and we don't even have our Summon Holy Relic for an extra 9 life, which is significant at this level. It's still a decent amount. So realistically, we can start Righteous Fire at level 17. Frankly, I was running around with it at level 16, and doing a Life Flask was plenty fine to kill Creighton, which is basically what I went to do. After this, it's the regen's only really going to get better. Every time we level, we're going to get more HP. When we get gear with more life, we're going to get more HP. The degen will increase, but as we level, we will also get higher levels of Vitality, which will increase our sustain and kind of make up for the more degen we're going to be getting. And then by the time we get our first ascendancy, we're going to mix in Stone Golem for some extra regen there, and the whole sustain is going to be an issue thing, is going to be gone for the rest of our playthrough, and that's with basically no gear. That's with 2 normal ruby rings for 60 res there and 15 fire res from Firewalker. So completely viable to start Righteous Fire. We already got Elemental Equilibrium. I have to say, starting as a Witch, this would also be the same case for Templar too, I guess, but being so close to Elemental Equilibrium, Agnostic, Mind Over Matter is really pretty nice nice way to start off as Righteous Fire. So we're going to be playing Righteous Fire basically from about level 16, 17, and all the way through, and by level 25, our sustain is going to be basically fixed for the rest of our playthrough, and it's only going to get better. So I might level this up a little bit more just to give you guys a good idea of what to do throughout the process up to the first ascendancy, at which point you get that first ascendancy, you get Stone Golems out. Really, you shouldn't need any more guidance besides generic gem levels and links and supports, and really all you need for that is just to look at my previous Righteous Fire videos. The link supports, the setups, all that stuff is basically going to be the same for Righteous Fire, for Flame Wall. I'm thinking about potentially mixing in Scorching Ray as well because of the Scorching Ray buffs. Maybe it could be fun to play with, and frankly, I am halfway really tempted to get the Shaper Beam Scorching Ray MTX effect. So what we're going to end up doing here is I'll do this real quick to desktop capture and show you this. I'm pretty much going around and writing down all the steps of what I'm doing during the acts. That way, if you guys wanted to follow along and basically do the exact same process I'm doing, you would know when and where I'm grabbing what gems and how I'm switching them around. And I think I'm going to complete this up to the first ascendancy, and maybe I'll attach this as like a paste bin in the description or something, or at the end I'll show it, and you can just scroll through this and basically copy it or go off that for some step-by-step things to do when developing this character. Welcome to the future again. As you can see, we are now level 34, the exact level you need to equip golems, and I've gotten my first ascendancy point, which is the golem nodes. I ended up deciding, due to the way Agnostic works, that it's more important to go for the life regen from the golems first, rather than going for what will be the 1% mana regen and the minus 25 res. Also think it's a bigger boost in damage just because early on you don't have a lot of percent damage on the tree. And the first node gives you a lot of percent damage from golems. It gives you damage from their flame golem. I really think the elemental immunities will be really nice having that by Cruel Lab, along with all the extra stats you're going to get from each of the golems. I think it's the play to go normal lab, first golem node, cruel lab, next golem node. And then after that, it'll be the merciless lab into the exposure node, and then uber lab into the convergence AoE node, which will make our clear just feel so much better, and our bossing better as well. So to start off with, when I don't have my stone golem summoned, you can see I have 116 flat life regen. That's with whatever, yeah, level 7 vitality, I still have a holy relic somewhere, but I don't think I need it. It gives 23 regen when it does its Nova thing, which I'm not sure how consistent that even is. I don't even have it on right now. When I turn on Righteous Fire, you can see we perfectly sustain it now. That's without the Stone Golem. I put on the Stone Golem, my life regen will go from 116 all the way up to 196. So it almost doubles our life regen after we're already sustaining it. But as you can see here, I haven't really spec'd a bunch of life on the tree. Early on, I've avoided life, so that way we could have the best sustain possible, because flat life regen is more effective at helping you sustain the degen from Righteous Fire if you have less life. So early on, I haven't really grabbed a bunch of life passives. Now that we have our Stone Golem, we can start grabbing life passives all over the place, get our stun threshold up. That was one of the things I did notice from going from level 30 or 17 to 34. This could also be part of the fact that I was really lazy and I didn't pick up really a single piece of gear. All of this stuff is basically normal except for my boots, which have life on it. I picked those up like at level 30, and then this scepter, which I picked up just because of the links. Everything else was basically just a normal piece of gear. I do not recommend doing this. I recommend when you get to Ritual League, play the mechanic, get yourself gear upgrades. It's really easy to get stun locked and killed if you have straight up 0 fire res and 0 cold res. So don't do what I did here and be lazy. Definitely pick up gear, upgrade your character as you go, and hopefully you wouldn't have as much of a problem with stuns as I did. I had a big problem because A, I wasn't grabbing life nodes, and B, I wasn't fixing my resistances or getting gear with life on them. But even then, with gear with no stats, it still went fine. Our DPS is honestly pretty decent at this point. I'm going to go ahead and run a Kaom here to show you what it looks like actually in play when we're running. So as the last showcase of what this character will look like, I guess we went and grabbed 2 levels while going through the calm zones, but still to showcase what 3 link and a couple 2 links will do. This is just what it looks like DPS and calm at this early stage. This is still, I gotta be honest with you, this is going to be a pretty much almost the worst we're going to be. As we go through the campaign, the DPS is going to get much better for killing campaign bosses, and it's only going to get better when you get to the maps as well. One quick thing I want to showcase before I move on here is what Agnostic does to you in terms of how it decides to regen your character. So now, what you'll notice is when I have Righteous Fire on, I'm sustaining when I just have Mind Over Matter, and my regen I have set up, etc. But if I were to respec into Agnostic here, if I was just going to unspec, let's just unspec out of this damage because it's for the sake of example. If I unspec out of this and go into Agnostic, you'll see I start instantly degenning a bunch of mana. The reason for that is, I think the way they coded it is that it doesn't consider your life regen when it's talking about the degen. It doesn't consider what your life regen's doing for you. It's just like, okay, if I can't sustain this with Agnostic, just burn through all of our mana first. So before your life regen's even being applied, it's burning through your mana. So essentially what that means is we can't really pick up Agnostic until we have gear with percent mana regen rate and more mana percent on the tree to actually have a substantial amount of mana on our build. As well as you can get to a breakthrough point at 20% mana regen per second. because you can only sacrifice 20% mana regen per second to have Agnostic going. Basically what this means is your life regen doesn't matter as much until you've taken a hit. Once you take a hit, both your life regen and Agnostic will come into play, and it'll mean we'll regen our life very, very quickly. Ideally, when we get to that point, we're going to be turning off our Righteous Fire, having a super fast regen of our mana and life, and it's going to be going perfectly fine. Now that we've gone over that, I'm going to go ahead and put in the description a list of some good uniques I'd recommend that are early on. They're 1 alch, they're 1 cast, they're really cheap. I'm going to put a list of uniques that you can get very early on for cheap that are good for Righteous Fire, as well as I'm going to put the text file I had going for my initial steps of what I was doing in Act 1 and Act 2. And I kind of stopped there because I got lazy and I didn't finish it for Act 3 / getting lab and getting golems. But it's pretty much just follow the quest line, get the quests done, etc. I'd highly recommend doing Ritual League mechanics, get yourself upgrades. Don't do what I did here and be lazy and just don't pick up any pieces of gear or identify anything, because this is just me being lazy. It does not make it a fun leveling experience when you have no lightning resistance for doing piety, for example. Hey, Zognia, thanks for the follow. And yeah, anyways, I'll put that stuff in the description, and now let's go to PoB. Now let's talk passive tree. This is really rough. I essentially just pulled in my OP Righteous Fire character. This gear isn't necessarily the gear we're going to use. It's going to more than likely be different because we're going to be stacking some mana, etc. And this tree, it's pretty rough, pretty experimental. More than likely it'll change from this. There will be specific modifications I make based on what I think I need as I'm going through the game, as I get different gear. This is the tree with clusters. Initially, you're not going to have clusters because clusters will be expensive. So I also, for pretty much all the other trees, I have it without clusters. And that's the way going all the way from level 8 through to 93. All these trees are no clusters. And then at 93, I do a switcheroo where I add in what would a tree with some clusters look like. Primordial Bond is an option to look at. So we might be considering that as well for our clusters. Maybe if we can get some decent Megalomaniacs, that would be something to consider. We still would like potentially maybe some mana stacking clusters. This is rough, not necessarily the final product. We'll be changing this, no doubt, as to what it'll end up being in the finale. I'm not 100% sure, but I am planning to basically every day at the end of the day, maybe post a short video where I say, hey, this is where the character's at, this is the tree currently, this is what it looks like doing like a T1 map, or a T5 map, or a T10 map, depending on where I am in the atlas. This is what it looks like doing the 10 boss encounter, etc. Stuff like that. I'll try to give you guys updates on as I get through those progressions each day. At the end of the day, give you a little update of where I'm at, what the gear looks like, what we're going for. But initially, this will hopefully give you a good idea of initial scope of what the tree possibly could end up looking somewhat like at the end of it. Before I finish up the PoB section, all I gotta say is make sure you get the community path of building fork, and as for the trees, make sure you're going through and looking at the tree selection down here in the bottom left. It makes it so you can switch around between level 93 all the way down to level 8, so that way you can get an idea of what passives you're selecting here. At level 15, you'll see I'm doing this kind of weird pathing here. Basically what's happening here is I'm grabbing these initial nodes, and then at like level 16 or 17, I'll get the respec points and the ability to switch into Righteous Fire, and you'll see I just do a 16 to 17 tree where I basically unspec out of these nodes. I grab Mind Over Matter. I think I needed Strength to run Vitality or something, and then I grab like Elemental Equilibrium and Shape or stuff like that. Initially, you don't have those nodes, but you will switch into them just by simply unspecking out of these points in the next 2 levels. And then after that, it's pretty straightforward of what we're grabbing. We're grabbing Elemental Overload, we're grabbing Fire Dot Multi. After that, going to 34, we're going for the Golem node, some more fire damage. At that point, we'll get better sustain, and then we start picking up life, mana, and then it's basically the same thing, except for 55, we go over to stun immunity. Thing is, when you run a Mind Over Matter build, the stuns become, honestly, they often become an issue, so this, I think, will probably be important. It sounds like my baby's waking up, so I'm going to go feed him and finish the rest of the video later. Give me a sec. I just managed to get Lance to start sleeping here. I apologize for the sound machine in the background. I figured since, you know, it's the last basically 30 seconds of the video, it's going to be okay. More or less, I'm just saying thanks for watching the video, guys. I think that pretty much covers all the details I wanted to cover. In the description, I'll have leveling uniques to use. I'll include the text file with basically the steps I took for the first 2 acts. And I'll try to answer whatever comments or questions you guys have in the comment section. As always, I appreciate you guys watching the videos. You have an excellent rest of your day, guys. Thank you.